Hello and welcome to MNM Mindset and Muscle. Now that we've gone through each of my workouts and my split, I figured we would break things down a little bit further and over the next couple weeks cover a series that's going to be diving a little bit more in depth into each specific muscle group, talking about the 3 big do's and 3 big don'ts that I recommend you focus on when training each muscle group. So we'll go through the entire body. We'll cover chest, shoulders, back, biceps, triceps, quads, hamstrings, calves, and abs. If I left anything out, we'll cover that too. But we will break down each muscle group a little bit more in detail so you can get the absolute most out of your training and develop each of those muscle groups to their maximum potential. As always with any of these videos, if you have further questions that I didn't cover, please leave a comment down below and I would love to answer your question and help you out. So without any further ado, let's get things kicked off. We are going to start off with back. Now, a lot of people find it tricky to train back as opposed to some other muscle groups for 2 main reasons. The first is that they can't see the muscle in the mirror when they're training. When you're training chest, when you're training shoulders, when you're training arms, you can watch yourself in the gym mirrors to make sure that your form is optimal and you can actually see the muscle contract and flex as you're doing the exercise correctly. With back, because it's behind you, obviously you don't have that luxury of watching the muscle actually work and focusing on the mirror to see perfect form. The other reason people can find back to be a little bit tricky is there are multiple muscle groups that make up what bodybuilders consider the back. That means you have to train from a variety of different angles and movements. So the main muscle groups in the back, you have the traps, you have the upper traps up here, the mid to lower traps as well. You have the lats that make up the width of the back. You have the teres, major and minor. You have the rhomboids. You have the erector spinae, or the spinal erectors down at the bottom of the back that make up the Christmas tree. I will go ahead and throw up a quick anatomy chart right here so you can see all the different muscle groups that I'm talking about real quick. So with all these muscle groups and all these things in mind, how do you get the absolute most out of your back training and develop your back so you can take it from this to this? So let's dive in. We're going to start with our first do. Do train back from multiple angles. So each of those muscle groups in the back is going to be stimulated from a variety of angles. And you have 3 main movements when it comes to training your back. You have any sort of vertical pulling exercise. This includes pull-ups with any style of grip, pull downs with any style of grip, pull overs, any movement where you're going to be taking your elbow up over your head and pulling down in a vertical position. This is primarily going to target the lats if done correctly. Here, let's go over a couple exercises that focus on those lats, that back width, and a vertical pulling, so you can see a couple cues I like to focus on. So this is an example of a vertical pulling movement, pulling straight down. This can be done in the form of a pull up, a pull over, overhand grip, neutral grip, one arm at a time, or in this case, reverse grip, pull down. The important thing is that you are controlling an explosive pull down into a contracted position, trying to hold for a brief pause and contraction at the bottom, and then controlling the negative on the way back up into the stretched position. You'll notice here that I'm using strict form, controlling the negative. Once I get to the point where I'm nearing failure, I use a little bit of extra body momentum to explode out a couple more repetitions. And when I can't do any more, I will finish off with a couple partials. So this is an example of a vertical pull movement for the lats. The second angle is going to be any sort of rowing movement. So this can be done in a variety of ways, and basically where your elbows are positioned to your body is going to be the main area of the back that's going to be targeted. If your elbows are tucked down into your side and you're pulling back, you're going to be focusing more on the lats or the mid back. If your elbows are flared out, more in line with your upper back, you're going to be focusing more on those upper back muscles. So rowing movements are really good for developing all that little musculature in detail in the middle of the back. Sure, it is also going to be targeting width, just the same way as vertical pull downs will work on detail a little bit as well. But it's going to train the muscles from a different angle and is very important to incorporate to fully develop your back. This is an example of a rowing movement. Rowing movements also include one-arm dumbbell rows, bent over barbell rows, T-bar rows, seated cable rows, or any type of hammer strength rowing machine, where rather than pulling down vertically, you are pulling in horizontally. The muscle group that you're going to be targeting the most will depend on the track of your elbows. In this case, I'm using a reverse grip and my elbows are staying in somewhat close to my side in the form of like a Dorian Yates underhand row, which is why this machine is also known as the DY row. You'll notice, same thing as with the vertical pulls, I'm exploding into the contracted position, trying to really squeeze those shoulder blades together, squeeze the muscles in the back at the top, and then slowly lowering into the stretched position again at the bottom. Exact same cadence as with the pull downs, explode, hold, slow down on the negative, get that full deep stretch. I also finish off here the top set when I can't get any more full repetitions. I'll get into the stretch position, hold it a little bit, and then do a couple partial repetitions to true failure. And the third angle for training your back is any sort of hinge movement. This is going to be any sort of deadlifting movement, rack pull, back extension machine, hyperextension, anything where you're hinging at the hips, specifically focusing on that lower back area.
Yeah. Oh. Let's go. Yeah, baby. Oh.
So when developing your back exercise program, I highly recommend you attack all of those angles. Let's say, for example, that you're going to be doing 4 exercises in your back workout. You can focus on, if you need more width, you would do 2 width movements, vertical pulling movements. You would do 1 row movement and 1 hinge movement. That way you're focusing on each area of the back. Perhaps if you already have some good width and you want to focus a little bit more on detail and thickness, then you would do 1 vertical pulling movement, 2 rows, and 1 hip hinge movement. If you wanted to focus on your lower back development, then you could do 1 vertical pull, 1 row, and 1 hip hinge movement. Obviously, you can do more exercises or less depending on your training split, but you get the idea. So that is do number 1. Train from a variety of angles and make sure each back workout incorporates one of each of those angles. Now we're going to go into the first do not. Do not allow your legs or momentum to take tension away from your back while you are trying to train your back. This is a very common mistake I see with back training where people jerk the weight up using momentum and a lot of body language, or swing the weight down when they're doing a pull down, or kip to kind of throw their body up using their legs and hips when they're doing a pull up. This will help you move more weight, this will help you get more repetitions, but this will also take a lot of tension off of your back and dramatically limit your back development. It's important to focus on being able to explode the weight up in a controlled fashion with as little momentum as possible. Try and squeeze for a brief split second in the contracted position and hold that for just a little bit, and then control the negative, taking at least twice as long on the negative as you did on the positive portion of the repetition. This is vital to maximize back development, and even though it will be a little bit of an ego check at the start, you will be able to build your strength back up, and you'll be able to get a much better connection with your back muscles and much better development as you progressively overload with your new perfected form. Do number 2, do use wrist wraps and a belt as needed. If you are deadlifting a heavy amount of weight or doing bent over barbell rows or T-bar rows with a heavy amount of weight, and you feel any sort of vulnerability or strain in your lower back, or if you've had any sort of lower back issues in the past, I highly recommend you invest in a good weightlifting belt. What this does is it allows your core to actually brace into the belt and put your back in a much stronger, safer position. This will keep you from getting injured potentially. Obviously, you still want to use correct form. You're not going to be deadlifting with that cat arch in your back, but the belt will allow you to maximize the weight used while keeping your back in a safer position, provided you brace correctly into that belt. I also recommend the use of wrist straps, especially for your heavy top sets of pull downs, pull ups, rows, or deadlifts. I don't recommend using these for every set, as obviously if you're using them even during your warm-ups, your grip will just get weak as you won't have any reason for your grip to work. But for top sets, if your grip is going to give out before your back muscles give out, use those straps so you can maximize taking your back training to failure or close to it without your grip being the limiting factor. Do not, number 2, do not train back directly after biceps. If you set up a workout split, I highly recommend that you don't put arms, specifically biceps, directly before a back workout. This is because after a difficult bicep day or arm day, your muscles in the arms are going to be taxed, and it's going to potentially be a limiting factor in any sort of rowing or pull down movement. Since your biceps are involved as a secondary muscle group to any of those exercises, you don't want that muscle to be sore or fatigued from a tough bicep day the day before, as that's just going to take away from your back day the following day. You don't want your biceps giving out on you before your lats, your traps, or your rhomboids. The third and final do on this list, do pick exercises that you are able to connect especially with and put those frequently in your training program. Certain grips may feel better for you and may give you a better mind to muscle connection on pull downs or pull ups. You may feel rack pulls in your back more than you do deadlifts, which you may feel in your hamstrings and glutes. You may like a certain hammer strength rowing machine. You may prefer T-bar rows over barbell rows, or one-arm dumbbell rows, or cable rows to any sort of free weight exercise. Find those exercises that you can connect with, you can stabilize yourself, limit momentum, lock yourself into the set, and take that exercise to intensity and to failure while feeling every inch of every repetition as the fibers of the back muscle contract and stretch on each and every rep. When you find those exercises that you connect with especially, perfect those, progressively overload and get stronger on those, and continue to watch your back develop and grow. Our final do not on this list is going to be do not do the exact same exercises every single back workout, especially if you are training back more than once a week. If you are training once a week, it can be okay to repeat exercises over and over. But if you're training any more frequently than every 7 or 8 days, I highly recommend you split your back workout into 2 or 3 separate workouts. How I structure these for myself and for my clients is I put these in an A, B, and C split. So we would have a back workout A, or maybe a pull day A, a back workout or pull day B, and a back workout or pull day C. That way, your muscles and your nervous system are recovering from some of those exercises that we did on pull workout or back workout A while you're training back workout B. Then when you're resting from back workout B by training back workout C before moving back into back workout A. This also allows you to mentally and physically progressively overload much more optimally, as you don't have to gear yourself up every 3 or 4 days to attack the same exercises while doing more weight and more repetitions. You have that week to week and a half break before you have to hit those exercises again. This will allow you to progressively overload more effectively and allow the body to recover and the mind to stay freshly challenged without getting bored or overwhelmed by the challenge of overloading on the same exercise within 4 days' time of overloading the previous week. So those are my top 3 do's and don'ts for back training. If you have experienced something that you think is really important or that perhaps I missed and left off the list, please leave it down in the comment section below to help others out and enlighten me as well as to what something you feel is important with back training. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Let me know any questions that you have. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. As always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. If you are in the Florida area, stay safe with Hurricane Idalia coming through later today and tomorrow morning. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.